All right, good day and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Thursday, December the 5th, 2024, the first of 4 Thursdays this month. We're now 20 days exactly away from Christmas, and it's International Volunteer Day, established by the United Nations General Assembly back in 1985 to bring attention to the importance of volunteering. For most of us, time is the most vital resource, right? Most of us do not have enough of it, especially during the holiday season. So if you are giving any of your precious time to help a good cause, then kudos to you, my friend, and thank you for doing what you do. Holy cow, I remember when Bitcoin was, pick a number. That is what you're hearing from friends, coworkers, family members, maybe people, at the convenience store all day today. That's the conversation. Or, man, I sold my Bitcoin at, whatever number. Bitcoin surging from around $94,000, $95,000 yesterday to more than $102,000 this morning after President-elect Donald Trump picked Paul Atkins to run the Securities and Exchange Commission. Atkins is an attorney and a former SEC official who's a big advocate for deregulation, or at least he has been an advocate for deregulation. So people love the pick. He would replace President Biden's SEC chair, Gary Gensler, who was more of a regulation guy. And the Biden administration has been seen as sort of holding back crypto. You remember when Mark Cuban was supposedly, consulting the Biden administration or Kamala Harris on cryptocurrency? I bet he's not complaining about Trump today, right? Let's hear from Mark Cuban, who owns a lot of Bitcoin. Him and Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch. That's one of the big stories today. Donald Trump's appointment of Army vet and Fox News host Pete Hegseth continues to be one of the other big stories. After Trump said he was considering replacing Hegseth with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, as I mentioned yesterday, as his pick for Secretary of State, it now looks like most, if not all, Republican senators, with the exception of Joni Ernst, are on board with Hegseth, who's been making the rounds on Capitol Hill, speaking with senators personally. He can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes and apparently has lost Joni Ernst. So really 2 more, assuming all Democrats were to vote no. This is Republican Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, a member of the House Select Committee on Intelligence on Newsmax.
It's fascinating to me that when Democrats run and win the presidency, their nominees, regardless of what their background is, seem to sail through with every single Democrat vote and oftentimes many Republican votes. Yet when a Republican wins the presidency, their nominees oftentimes struggle to get through, and it's Republican senators that always find a reason to vote no. And people wonder why the swamp continues to be the swamp, why the status quo continues to be the status quo. This is one of the reasons why.
That's exactly right. And exactly the problem. The thing I talk about all the time. Democrats typically stick together. Republicans usually screw it up for other Republicans and the people that voted for them. Just go back to Trump's first presidency, right? That's what fueled the MAGA movement to begin with and separated the rhinos from the so-called MAGA Republicans. It's one of the many reasons Trump was reelected.
And now this report that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis may be a backup, that Trump and DeSantis may have spoken in Palm Beach at law enforcement funeral services on Tuesday. What do you think of that as a potential backup? Let's say there was some change and Hegseth decides to withdraw. Governor Ron DeSantis, is this something you think would be a good, suitable fit to be a next choice?
Well, look, President Trump is a guy who's got a plan for everything, and I'm sure he's got a backup plan for every single one of his nominees, knowing what Washington, D.C. is like and the firestorm that surrounds nearly any nominee that's willing to do anything different in this place. That having been said, look, I served with Ron DeSantis. Of course, he was a founding member of the House Freedom Caucus. He's been a terrific governor for Florida and a terrific leader across the country and, of course, military service as well. So he would be a great selection for the president. But I would say this, If that were the case, if he were selected as the nominee, it'd take about a minute before the left and the media would start trying to destroy him as a potential nominee for Secretary of Defense or anything. It's just how things are done around here. So it's not going to make that's not, in my opinion, it's not going to make much of a difference whether it's Pete Hegseth or Ron DeSantis. The media, the left wing, the establishment, et cetera, are all going to come against the Trump nominees. Anybody that challenges the establishment here is their enemy.
Pennsylvania Congressman Scott Perry on Newsmax with host Bianca De La Garza. That report about Trump speaking with DeSantis at the police memorial, you know where that came from because you listen to the Newsmax Daily. Anyway, the attacks on Pete Hegseth started with an infidelity story that didn't, really seem to work the way they wanted it to. So then they went to the he's an alcoholic story. As Representative Perry stated, it doesn't matter if it's Hegseth, Ron DeSantis, or anyone else really for that matter. The left and the media will attack them because it's the Republicans and because it's Trump's pick. Listen to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The Wicked Witch of the West explains it herself. This is really something. Listen closely.
You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic.
Okay. Her words, and 6-8 years ago? Pete's not dropping out. He said that today.
I spoke to the president-elect this morning. He said, keep going, keep fighting. Behind you all the way.
So you're in this all the way?
Why would I back down? I've always been a fighter. I'm here for the more fighters. It's personal passion for me.
You're not withdrawing your name from consideration, just to be clear.
I'm meeting all day with senators.
You would think a credible news source attempting to politically assassinate the next Secretary of Defense would have people on the record about what they're accusing him, right? No. They cite 10 anonymous sources and never even bothered to reach out to his two co-hosts. One of them, Will Cain, tweeting, quote, I was not contacted by anyone at NBC News, and not one had a closer proximity than continuous basis, well, maybe Rachel Campos Duffy, since she sat between us. Rachel, the other co-host, then responded, the losers at NBC News never reached out to me. Either Will Cain is right, your story is horse bleep. You now have two people who sat next to him for 8+ hours a week. On the record, will you retract or correct your story? In fact, there are 19 people that work or have worked with Pete coming out on the record to refute these allegations by NBC, to defend him and say that these allegations are complete BS. But are any of these networks reporting that? No, of course not. You wonder why your ratings are crashing, MSNBC? That's why. And I have been calling these people out for the use of these bogus, totally anonymous sources that they have used to try to take down Trump for years.
Right. So I'm sitting here very quietly listening to all this BS, quite frankly. And did you listen to anything McMaster said today where he said, I was in the room, that didn't happen, nothing inappropriate was shared? You're basing all these allegations off of one or maybe two sources, which CNN reports. Two former officials knowledgeable of the situation confirmed to CNN that the main points of the story. Two former officials. Tell you what, come out, name those people, then we'll have something to talk about.
One, we protect sources. Two, it's not just CNN. It's Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, ABC,
yeah, but who
NBC.
are the sources?
Carl.
Who are the sources? Oh, because they're hiding behind this anonymity.
Oh,
and that's what we're seeing.
Please, do not even start with me that you're just going to attack sources.
Okay, so
that is ridiculous.
So are you saying McMaster is lying?
I'm not saying McMaster is lying.
Well, he didn't really answer the question.
He didn't answer the question.
He said nothing inappropriate was shared.
No, that's his opinion.
That would be.
But that's his opinion.
You cannot attack.
Yeah.
Do not attack the stellar reporters of CNN who have their sources and would protect their sources.
Stellar reporters of CNN that I am going to attack right now and say, guess what? I don't believe them because they're staying anonymous. If they stand behind this story, come out, face the camera.
And I was right. That was 6-7 years ago. It's all the same report that all the networks run, and then everyone else piles onto that. Just like Pelosi said, they take 50 articles from the same original report and that say that, oh, look, everyone's reporting it. They did this with Russian collusion, where they funneled a fake dossier into the highest levels of the government, illegally, by the way, that they then used to start an investigation that they then reported on the investigation as a conviction and tried to take down a president of the United States with that. They're doing the same thing with Pete Hegseth, and I am not going to stand for it. Look, full disclosure, I know Pete. I really like the guy. And the alcohol claims, look, I've had a few beers with him on occasion. In fact, I don't even really drink that much, but the only times I have drank in the last 10 years was at my producer's wedding you see right there. It's also her birthday today. And that was like a few weeks ago. And at a military fundraiser with Pete. And we had a great time. And we had a bunch of beers. Was there a problem? No, there was not a problem. Does he have a problem? I certainly don't think so. Is he a liability? Absolutely not. But I find it incredibly rich that the same people crying foul about nameless allegations about him drinking here have said nothing, absolutely nothing about regular accusations of Nancy Pelosi drinking on the job sometimes. In fact, if you Google anything about her drinking, the same people standing by these anonymous sources, they rush to debunk anything about their precious Pelosi.
Carl Higbie on yesterday's edition of Frontline. That's at 5 o'clock Eastern. Is that Nancy Pelosi cut amazing or what? I mean, what more proof do you need of how swampy the swamp is? Greg Kelly, who also served overseas in the U.S. military, is not a fan of the Pete Hegseth appointment. He talked first about how much he likes Matt Gaetz, why he likes Matt Gaetz, and we pick it up with this.
Pete Hegseth is no Matt Gaetz. He hasn't done nearly enough for MAGA to warrant the Department of Defense job. And he's got serious baggage. Serious baggage. It happens sometimes. Not every pick is perfect. Where do I get this stuff, by the way? Not from the fake news, but from this guy. Tim Parlatore is Hegseth's attorney, and he's been making all kinds of statements that I don't think are particularly helpful to Tim Hegseth, like confirming everything in the New York Times story. And it's just, so he's putting out some information himself. And the email from the mom to Pete in 2018 made some people upset, right? Well, Steve Doocy read from it today, right in front of Pete Hegseth's mother.
I'm going to read part of it. You say, this is to Pete, during the 2018 divorce. You say, I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, and sleeps around. And you go on and say, you are that man and have been for years. And as your mother, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that, but it is a sad, sad truth. You say, we still love you, but we are broken by your behavior and your lack of character.
That's intense stuff. His former employers, right? Reading it right there to the mother. And she was great. Let's hear what she has to say.
But Pete is a new person. He's redeemed, forgiven, changed. I think we all are after 7 years. He's a changed man, and I just hope people will get to know who Pete is today, especially our dear female senators, that you would listen to him, listen with your heart to the truth of Pete.
Really nice, right? But there are some problems here. Sorry, big time. According to Pete's lawyer, Pete is blackmailable. 2 years before that email was sent, Pete Hegseth was conferring with President Trump at Trump Tower about high-level political appointments, maybe even as Secretary of Veterans Affairs. He was at the Trump Tower. He had that conversation, and that's fine, right? But 2 years later, he is blackmailed by a woman who falsely accuses him, but he pays money to her anyway. Is he a new man? Anybody can be forgiven. I know that. I know that. If you ask for forgiveness, of course. Is Hunter Biden a new man? Okay, is he? That laptop came to light in 2018. Is everything on that laptop? When I go to that email, okay, yeah, go to the email. I also went to his text messages, folks. I did. A lot of folks are saying also that, well, how about Trump? He was married 3 times and this, that, and the other thing. Trump. Let's talk about Trump, right? We've been vetting the guy for 40 years. We know him. We voted for him. 77 million people. The scrutiny, years and years, 4 years if you add it up, of running for president, being president, and all the years before. I think we know everything about this guy. Pete Hegseth, most of us met him just the other day, and it's great that he served in the military. And let's talk about the military service. When you're in the military, there are unique rules. The Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's a special kind of set of laws that govern people in uniform. And one of them pertains to adultery. Now, a lot of folks think adultery is, oh, that's quaint. They should take that law off the books. In the military, adultery, yeah, it can be punishable by a dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of pay. You can get in all kinds of trouble for having those kinds of relations. Okay, folks? Now, well, why? New York State just took it off the books. Why doesn't the military? I'll tell you why the military doesn't. Because the military is unique. You go away to sea for 6 months, 9 months. You say goodbye to your loved ones, your girlfriends, your wife, your husbands these days. And you leave them on base, sometimes with 40,000 other guys and girls. You know what I'm getting at, right? Okay, things happen. Things happen, even with it against the law. So with Pete, who has told people quite openly that he's not good at being married, that's a situation for the folks in uniform. I speak from experience. Number one, I made a hell of a lot of mistakes. I am no angel. But I'm also not the nominee for Secretary of Defense, nor would I be, all right? No, I can't. I understand that. I can deal with that.
That's Greg Kelly, host of Greg Kelly Reports, and he went on to talk about his military career, being in Iraq as a soldier and then as a journalist, and says if he were a senator, this is what he would be asking Pete.
If I were talking to Pete Hegseth as a United States Senator, I would want to know more about his journalism career. I would ask him, so you were the anchor of Fox and Friends for 9 years. Tell me about the most important January 6th story you ever did. Have you ever done anything about January 6th? Have you ever done anything about Ashley Babbitt? Have you gone deep with Ashley Babbitt? Have you gone there? What about when Fox News called Arizona, 20 minutes after the polls closed and changed the course of history? Did you repeat that claim the next day? Were you on the set? So if anybody gets a little bit fatigued about the truth that we utter here, I'll remind you, we're special and we're better than Fox. And Pete Hegseth, by the way, is better than any of the worst things he's ever done, and redemption is available. But I am so proud of this show, and I am proud of Newsmax. Routinely, we interview January 6 prisoners while they're in prison, if you don't mind. One after the next after the next. We do it all the time. We love these guys. They are unfairly incarcerated. I've interviewed Ryan Nichols. I've interviewed about a dozen of these guys, on and on and on. These guys, in my book, some of them are MAGA royalty. And they have been abandoned by Fox News. Don't you ever forget that. MAGA royalty is Aaron Babbitt. Aaron Babbitt has become a friend. I so respect him. May I see Aaron Babbitt? We're going to make... Aaron is a great guy, and he's waging a fight against the federal government. His family deserves compensation. There's a big debate about reparations for slavery. How about what this guy lost? An unarmed woman, his wife, Ashley Babbitt. Did Pete Hegseth do some big deep dives on Ashley Babbitt and Aaron? From what I know, Tucker Carlson got fired for talking about her too much. So MAGA, I think, can be a big tent, all right? You don't have to be passionate about January 6 issues. You don't have to be passionate about election integrity, but you got to be passionate about something, right? Are you passionate about the right things? Pete Hegseth? I wonder.
Food for thought from a passionate Greg Kelly, host of Greg Kelly Reports, 9 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax, 9 p.m. President Biden returned to the White House after midnight last night or this morning. He'll participate in the lighting of the national Christmas tree in D.C. tonight with the First Lady, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Second Gentleman Doug. I'm sure you heard the rumors about their marriage circulating on social media yesterday. For now, it's a rumor, and it's their marriage, so that's all I'm going to say about that, at least for now. Last night was the lighting of the iconic Rockefeller Center Christmas tree in New York City.
And this is like a centerpiece of New York, right? That's why we stand out.
Not far from where Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, was gunned down earlier in the day. What an unbelievable story. I'm sure you've seen the video by now. Police say the words deny, defend, and depose were written on the shell casings found at the scene of the shooting. And if you have seen the video, how amazing is it? How lucky is that woman that was standing right there? I mean, this guy had no concern whatsoever about her being a witness. I mean, shooting Thompson, he easily could have taken her out. She just walked away. It's amazing. Thompson was on his way to speak at the company's investor conference. He was also one of several United Healthcare executives being investigated by the Justice Department for insider trading. This was definitely a targeted hit, but why and by whom? I mentioned that shooting at the end of yesterday's Newsmax Daily, right? And I also mentioned New York City Mayor Eric Adams saying he will cooperate with the Trump administration and border czar Tom Homan on ridding New York City of dangerous, illegal immigrant criminals. That was the topic of conversation on National Report.
Texas Congressman Troy Nehls. He's a member of the House Judiciary Committee and Border Security Caucus. So welcome, sir, and thanks for coming on. What do you make of this change of tune from New York City Mayor Eric Adams?
Emma and Sean, thank you for having me. After November 5th, obviously his tune has changed, but the American people got to know this, that he's under indictment for bribery and some campaign finance laws. He may be looking for maybe a pardon in the future from Donald J. Trump. Now he's all on board with Donald Trump and his immigration policies, and he wants to sit down with Tom Homan. Well, I applaud him for doing so, because look at what happened just today with the brutal murder of the CEO with United Healthcare. So New York, it's out of control. The mayor he sees it for what it is, and now it's time for mayors, governors across the entire country to get on board, and let's get rid of these bad hombres, these illegals that are in our country preying on the American people, young and old. So I applaud the Mayor Eric Adams for doing so, but I think it could be a little too late, quite honestly. You should have been doing this for the past 12, 24 months.
Yeah, you know, to your point, this is different from his previous stance on his sanctuary city status. We have this Adams previously saying, quote, most migrants who come to the city are not violent offenders. I don't have a goal of repealing sanctuary city, and I want to be clear on that. I think the Republicans have really gotten in the way of real, true immigration reform for a long time, end quote. But it seems like there was some aha moment for this mayor, because it's interesting when he says, go ahead and cancel me, but I'm standing up for the people of New York City. Is there fear from the Democrat Party if you step up for border policy, if you step up for border security and protecting those that have elected you into office, those that are paying the taxes, that are funding those here illegally? Is there fear by Democrat politicians of the Democrat machine?
Well, if this election would have turned out differently, and God, it would have been a train wreck, and we would have destroyed our country or continued to destroy it if Kamala. But this conversation probably wouldn't be taking place if Kamala Harris would have been elected on November 5th. But I think that Democrats and that nut job out of Denver and some of these other governors that are saying they're not going to cooperate with this mass deportation, Donald Trump, Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, they've all made it very, very clear. We have to protect the American people. And we're going to protect the American people by curbing the violence by getting rid of the illegals that are here committing, very, very serious crimes against the American people. Tren Diagua, that gang out of Venezuela, has occupied several states, several cities, communities, apartment complexes. And I think that the Trump administration with Tom Homan and them are going to go after those individuals first and foremost. And there are tens of thousands of them that are here, right. And it's going to be a logistical operation. It's going to be difficult, but we can get it done by having some cooperations from federal, state, and local authorities. And so they all need to get on board.
That's Texas Congressman Troy Nehls, a member of the House Border Security Caucus, on National Report with Sean Kreisman and Emma Reckenberg, which is on every day following Wake Up America. Mayor Adams is under indictment for bribery and may be looking to get on Republicans' good side now, as he said. Don't forget, Mayor Adams gave actor Robert De Niro a key to the city after he pulled that ridiculous stunt and tirade against Donald Trump. And let's wrap up today's edition of The Daily with Rob Schmitt discussing the anti-democracy Democrats.
Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight, an act that reminds you just how much you can't stand the government. The Biden White House has begun the process of insulating Washington from the Trump mandate. The same people who scream daily about protecting democracy are right now working feverishly to shield our bloated government from the gut job the American people all voted for democratically just last month. Shielding the D.C. tumor from Trump's new Department of Government Efficiency, which is run, of course, by Elon and Vivek. One example, 42,000 Social Security workers landing a work-from-home deal from the Biden White House just before Trump arrives. This, of course, is being done intentionally, protecting work from home for tens of thousands of government employees until 2029. Think about how much fat you could trim from the government's Social Security Department that has tens of thousands of employees. How many thousands of them do almost nothing all week? Maybe answer a couple of emails. And as a last-minute middle finger to Americans who voted for change in Washington, Biden secures their right to do next to nothing at home in their underwear for the next 5 years. Do you work from home? I don't. The Biden White House also locking down plans to block Schedule F for good as well. Trump's plan to strip employment protections from our massive bureaucratic state, an effort to clean out those who actually subvert democracy by working against the president of the United States when it's not the president that they voted for, something that was very crippling to Trump in his first term. The greatest irony of all is that nobody subverts democracy more than Democrats do these days. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? They're the ones that talk about it all the time. After losing a bloodbath election, they're doing everything they can to stop Trump from imposing your will in Washington.
We can bury our heads under the pillow and give up, or we can fight for our country, our democracy, and our future. I choose the latter.
We have to have a to-do list of what we're going to do to protect this country and not let Donald Trump turn the lights out on democracy.
Turn the lights out on democracy. They want to protect democracy. What is democracy? One of the biggest issues in this election, of course, was immigration. Axios reporting Democrats also plan to lean on the Biden administration to fast-track citizenship and residency paperwork for all of these illegals. So nearly 70% of Americans want the illegals out. That's what the polling indicated just before the election. And Democrats are working right now as fast as they can to give them residency and citizenship. That's how it works. That's how much disdain they have for you. That's how little they actually care about democracy, what the people actually want. It's their country. We just stole it back from them for a few years. That's how they think.
That's Rob Schmitt, host of Rob Schmitt Tonight. And in a rare show of bipartisan agreement, senators from both parties questioned and criticized airline executives on Capitol Hill over so-called junk fees, right? Something we've been hearing about for a long time. Things like paying extra for a seat and checking your bags on a plane.
We're all captives on your airplanes at a certain point. And you just say, you want to pick a seat, we're just going to charge you some random amount more.
Your airlines are paying millions of dollars to your employees to harass people who've already paid. They're there in line because they've already paid. It's unbelievable.
Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. You know, in the news business, they always say they were grilled on Capitol Hill. There's almost no one better at grilling people than Josh Hawley. The guy is amazing. And that was New Hampshire's Maggie Hassan as well. The airline executive's rebuttal was that when you adjust for inflation, airfares, not including the fees, have never been lower. I looked for a flight yesterday on American. First of all, not including the fees. I mean, that's the key to the whole thing, right? But American Airlines doesn't seem to know that they are not the same American Airlines they once were. They are not one of the premier. They are not the premier Rolls-Royce airline anymore. Their prices on flights were definitely not the lowest they have ever been. Same deal with Delta. And you know, I live in Florida. When you fly Delta from Florida to almost anywhere, you need to stop in Atlanta. It's ridiculous. All right, be sure to keep up with all of the news and breaking developments all day today on Newsmax, Newsmax 2, and Newsmax.com. That's where most things break first. Beginning with Wake Up America each and every day, National Report, Newsline with Bianca De La Garza, Frontline with Carl Higbie, Rob Schmitt Tonight, Finnerty, Ed Henry, Chris Salcedo, John Bachman, and much, much more with fantastic analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, Senator Santorum, political analyst Mark Halpern, Alan Dershowitz, and many others. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you for listening. As always, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, Friday Eve, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Relentlessly slowing the spread of the stupid every day. It's the Rob Carson Show.
Hey, it's Rob Carson. My podcast is about leading-edge commentary and opinion, great guests, and the biggest political comedy in the country. My satire was featured on the Rush Limbaugh program for over a decade, and now it's fresh and new and on my podcast. It's not just another desk-pounding conservative tirade. It's about entertaining, informing, and motivating. Patriotism and hope. You don't need more stress in your life. You need to feel good and, dare I say, even laugh. Subscribe and download at your favorite podcast platform or go to Newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax.